Fanalysis combines the analytics of fantasy football with the data from sports betting to find you the sharpest edge. And for that, we turn to a man who has replaced his brain with a quantum computer, lead betting analyst from Pickswise, Jared Smith. Jared Smith joins us once again. Good to see you, man.
Oh, it's been a long offseason.
Yeah,
I feel
really
like
has,
these little
man.
chats, they happen so quickly in the fall, and then we get that big gap where I just long for the discussions that we are about to bestow on our audience.
Are you ready? I mean, week one of the NFL season, does this feel like it's the first day of school for you? You're going to get all dressed up,
It's
slick
like
your
the
hair
first
back.
day of 8th grade. I've already been through kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, right? We're about to go into a higher level of
Yes.
graduate studies here. No, listen, the NFL season is unlike any other sporting season. The rhythm of it, the way that we try to ignore some of the things that we saw that happened a week ago and then try to also apply lessons at the same time. There is a give and take to the NFL season that is unique compared to any other sport. And that's why it's probably the most popular sport to bet on.
Oh,
right?
well, most popular. I mean, Vegas literally just announced that as of today, they have more tickets bet on week one of the NFL season than ever before in the history of sports betting. And we're only on, at the end of the week. We still got 2 more days yet of betting to go. But I'd really be curious to see how you like to approach week one. Because, truth be told, we don't have a lot of data, but neither do the handicappers. Does that mean that the lines are going to be moving a lot more with the Joes? Does it offer an opportunity? Or does it mean that you kind of want to stay clear of week one? Does week one make you a little scared?
Does make me scared because we don't have a long preseason. That data, frankly, is irrelevant. Last season's data, even more irrelevant. The one thing that is intriguing to me in week one, and we didn't get into it too much this week because it's not my specialty, but the props market is beatable. First of all, the props market is becoming more popular than sides and totals. I heard there was more action on Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown on Thursday Night Football against the Bills than there was the entire spread handle,
Wow.
Bills or Rams. So you are starting to see the public gaze a little bit towards that fantasy football approach, which I know we've discussed a lot here on the show. From a betting perspective, sides and totals, the sports books are still pretty buttoned up. Even though we don't have a lot of data to go off of, these numbers for week one, and this is week one specific, have been available for months now. So the market's been beaten and battered by all these sharps trying to get an edge in June, July, and August. Now we get to September. Week one, to me, is probably the shortest card I will have all season. Likely. I don't want to put myself in a box. Likely the shortest card I will have all season, sides, totals, and teasers.
Well, then let's just get to that because you literally only have one best bet this week. The Bucks and the Cowboys. Dallas is a 2.5-point home dog with the over at 51. What draws you to this game?
Well, the number, the total really catches my eye. So unlike, traditional 3 and 7 key numbers on the sides, you would think, the totals doesn't really matter what the key numbers are. 51 is the most landed on total in the NFL over the last 5 years.
Wow.
51, it's not as important as 3, which is like a 14 to 15% hit rate on 3 over the course of the long haul of the NFL. But 51, about 5% of the games, which is the most of any other total, have landed on 51 over the last 5 seasons. So that is a dividing line for me. When this total opened at 52 and dropped below 51, it got down to 50 at one point, that's when I start to raise that red flag. Because if a line goes from 2.5 to 3.5, well, that's pretty important. Same rules apply, 51, 52, now down to 50.
So you're treating 51 as like a key number almost.
It is the most key total, I think, in the NFL right now. And I treat it it's an impactful number. So when I see that number go below, that means some really impactful, influential people were betting under. Now let's look at the handicap for the game. Well, the Bucs have a million problems on the offensive line. We know about Ryan Jensen. We know about his backup, Hainsley, that's been in and out of the lineup. We know about Tristan Wirfs has a questionable tag. Offensive line play is difficult here. I think we're not going to see a ton of push by either offensive line, and I think movement early in this game is going to be a problem for both offenses.
I tell you what, just looking at the numbers, the data does not lie. Tyron Smith, the left tackle who's going to be out for the year for the Dallas Cowboys, was so impactful. He was irreplaceable. He allowed, or I should say, he gave one more yard per carry every time he was on the field. One more yard per carry. He accounted for a full yard per play by himself. And Dak with Smith at left tackle had a QBR rating of 78. Without him, it drops to 47. So this is clearly an offense. Neither of these offenses look like they're going to be operating at full strength, especially when you look at the receivers that the Cowboys are running out there right now.
Yeah, and I saw Chris Godwin questionable. I think he's going to play. Russell Gage for the Bucs also has been battling some soft tissue things during camp. And again, Tom Brady missing a ton of camp too is very important. Cowboys also dealing with some offensive issues. You mentioned the wide receivers, and both defenses are pretty good. Yeah. So I think this one kind of lends to an under, even though the public loves to bet the over.
Well, okay, so you brought up Brady. He's got some off-field issues, I guess is the best way to put it. Do you think this guy is even going to be focused for the NFL season, or will he be able to compartmentalize?
I do think he'll be focused, and I think he's a pro. He's an ultimate pro's pro. I think the one thing that scares me is timing and rhythm. Now, in 6 weeks, it probably isn't a factor. But week one, he has not faced any live action in preseason. He has not faced as much live action as he normally would during training camp because he was gone for an extended period of time. It might be one of those situations where the Bucs offense gets going throughout the course of this game this season. But if you're talking about a one-game roll of the dice, I would rather lean under that key total of 51.
Yeah, and if you're talking about props, you might want to go prop on the under for total yards for Tom Brady this year. The defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals open at home as a 6.5-point favorite against the Steelers. Are you keeping a close eye on this one, especially because it's right there near that key number of 7?
Oh, yeah. And listen, week one, I would be a lot more conservative with your I'm willing to bend on a half a point here or there because of the lack of data that we have. The only data that we have are those key numbers, and 7 being a big one. Now, when we look at the game handicap here, I don't fully trust Mitchell Trubisky. I know you don't. But when it looks at the overarching trend of the Bengals, so I don't know if you knew this, Super Bowl losers are just 4-18 against the spread in week one the following year. Oh, so the trend says the Super Bowl loser doesn't do well week one. Divisional underdogs have also been a play on trend early in the season in recent years. There are a ton of trends that fit this narrative. I think the matchup says the Bengals should win, but Mike Tomlin, week one, as an underdog, again, a very positive trend over the years. So while I don't really like the trenches, the personnel, the matchups, I think they favor Cincinnati. I think there are some other things here that really point me to Pittsburgh. So if I get that key number of 7, if we get a +7 at some point in the market this week, it's worthy to make a bet.
The Dolphins, 3.5-point favorites at home against the Patriots. There's your divisional matchup, but they're not division dogs. They're divisional home favorites. They actually have beaten the Patriots 3 straight times. Do they make it 4?
Do. And again, this is another one that I would wish that I could rewind the clock and buy the 3 when I saw it pop up in the market. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. We saw a little bit of movement towards New England when they were starting to get some positive run in the media. Some of that media traction picked up, and it went from 2.5, then it went to 3, 3.5, then it went back to 3. But game week, as the limits expand and that big money starts to enter the marketplace, it's been all Miami. And it makes sense. I am very bullish on the Dolphins this year. The offensive line was awful last season. They upgraded. Connor Williams at center, tremendous job for the Cowboys. They get Armstead from the Saints at right tackle. Those are two very bullish pieces for that Miami offensive line. You add in Tyreek Hill to Mike McDaniel's new scheme with Tua, you think there's going to be a step forward there. Defensively, Josh Boyer, third year, coming over from the Patriots, bringing that Patriots scheme, incredibly talented secondary. Defensive line, average or slightly above average, but all of the pieces are in place for Miami to be that next team, supplant the Patriots, and be that second tier. Maybe they could compete with Buffalo for the division, but I still think they're, especially based on what we saw from Buffalo on Thursday night, maybe a step behind still. Goodness. But I'm very bullish on the Dolphins this year. If I happen to find a 3 at some point in the next few days, that is a bet I would also like to make, because that key number of 3 is very important.
I cringed, though, in the preseason when Tua gave it all he had to try to overthrow Tyreek Hill, and he underthrew him by about 10 yards. So it just made me cringe a little. You know that guy's not going to be able to throw the ball more than 45, 50 yards. But you mentioned this earlier about the divisional home dogs. So I want to expand on that point there a little bit. Since 2009, the Week 1 divisional home dogs are 16-6 straight up. Straight up. 19-4 against the spread. So with that in mind, do you like any other plays that you might try to create with, say, some alternate lines for this week? Maybe even parlay them if you'd like.
Love the teasers. Love to move lines in our favor and manipulate. To me, in the NFL markets, it's the most efficient market. So if you're telling me that I can manipulate the lines in my favor and I could start to contract some narratives that now back up those manipulated lines, I feel like I'm getting an edge. To me, the Vikings are the key one. I would put the Vikings in every single alternate line over 7 this week, because they have a very I think this is going to be the most important matchup of the week. It's the only matchup with divisional teams projected to finish 1-2 in their respective divisions. You can make an argument, and you could say that this game on Sunday between the Vikings and the Packers is going to make a difference come divisional January time. Who wins the NFC North? That tiebreaker might play in. So a lot's riding on this game Week 1, more than the average Week 1 game. I think for the Packers, the matchup comes down to, is their offensive line healthy? Jenkins and Bakhtiari, both tackles, are expected to play. Both tackles really were banged up last year. If they can be healthy and productive, I think they have a plus matchup against the Vikings defensive line, which, oh, by the way, brings over Zadarius Smith from Green Bay to Minnesota, pairs him up with Danielle Hunter. That is a very formidable 1-2 punch on the edge. So to me, that matchup is going to be key. Aaron Rodgers, new complement of receivers. I expect Aaron to be good. He wasn't good last year in Week 1, even though he had an MVP season. There is some inkling that there's some issues there with the wide receivers. He's brought it up in camp. They did a kumbaya. I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. It seems like there is some upheaval in the Packers wide receiver room. On the other side for the Vikings, Christian Darrisaw, the star left tackle, first-round pick. We saw improvement last year, but still finished 25th out of 34 qualifying tackles in pressure rate. That needs to improve. Kirk Cousins, I think, with Kevin O'Connell in tow, will be much better this year. Their weapons are elite. Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Irv Smith. There's no questioning how solid Minnesota's offense is. Will the scheme come together in year 1 under O'Connell? And can the Packers defense, which is great in the back with Amos and Butler, and they've got a really solid secondary, can they slow down that Minnesota Vikings attack? I don't know, but I think this game's close, and I think getting anything over 7 with the Vikings is a really solid alternate line play.
And you clearly like the Falcons as well. Would you consider, a parlay money line on those 2 home divisional dogs?
I'm a little less bullish on the Falcons winning the game, but I will say this. You're telling me that the strength of their defense is the secondary with A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward. And you're telling me the strength of the Saints offense, which, by the way, lost their right tackle, Terron Armstead. I talked about him going to Miami. And their right guard, Cesar Ruiz, first-round pick from a year ago, 2 years ago, has performed under expectations. The entire right side of the Saints offensive line, in my eyes, is a question mark. Jameis Winston, all the talent in the world, question mark still. And you're telling me that the strength of the Falcons defense, not a lot of positives with the Falcons, but the strength of this defense is the secondary. You can make a case that Jameis Winston might struggle a little bit in this game. New receivers, Olave, first-round pick, very positive, but rookie playing his first game on the road. Jarvis Landry, new quarterback or new receiver playing with a new quarterback. Michael Thomas, banged up, hasn't played in almost 2 years. There are question marks with the Saints offense. I can make a case that Atlanta's going to keep this game close. I really like moving this up to +10, +11, pairing it with the Vikings, doing a parlay in that way. But if you want to just bet the Falcons straight up or against the spread, I can make an argument that they're going to be hanging in this game.
All right, that's how he sees the first week of the NFL season. We're going to find out a little bit more as the season plays out. For all of his plays, make sure you check out him on Twitter. Lead betting analyst from Pickswise, Jared Smith, thank you so much. Make sure you check out our other segment as well on the Jets and the Giants. This is Fanalysis.